good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. Thanks for joining us on another Vetro webinar. Today, we're going to be talking to you about selecting the right fiber management system for you. So quick round of introductions here. My name's Brock. I'm a product marketing manager here at Vetro, and I'm joined today by Sean Dundon and Will Jonas. Do you want to say a quick hello, guys?
Yeah, thanks for joining, everyone.
Yeah, likewise. Glad to have everyone.
Great. Thanks for joining, guys. It's going to be a great webinar today. So to kick things off, we'll cut right to the chase here. If you're on this webinar, it's most likely because you have some sort of a fiber management system transition coming up, likely in your near future, or you're at least considering it. If that's not you, content today may not be as applicable, but we thank you for joining anyway. The main reason we're doing this webinar is because we're really hearing this common theme across the industry that there's a lot of transition coming up. People are looking for a new FMS to support their ongoing operations and are unsure of what the right next move is for them. So we're seeing a lot of transition in this space. The landscape is changing. A lot of systems are retiring, maybe being replatformed in new directions. And this is happening for a lot of reasons. Some of those reasons just come down to plain evolving tech, platform and data model changes. Some of the legacy platforms that are out there just weren't built in with the current landscape of fiber in mind and without the future in mind. So there's a lot of change that's happening in that direction. And sometimes changes relate to mergers and acquisitions. A lot of software providers are buying each other up today and trying to find what's the optimal platform to land on. So that's creating a lot of migration scenarios that we're hearing from customers and people in the industry we're talking to. So if this is you or sounds like you, today's webinar is going to be a great fit. And just want to stress that seeing the industry move forward is really great. We love seeing this, but we do know that change is hard. So if you're going to move, there really needs to be a strong benefit that you're moving towards. After all, I don't think anyone on the call today is probably looking to just survive. We all want to thrive and really maximize the value of our networks. So Sean, I'm going to throw to you here. Before we go too much further, what are some of the main benefits that operators can expect to gain by making sure they've got the right FMS for them?
Yeah, thanks, Brock. I really appreciate that. And thanks, everyone, for joining today. Just want to remind you that there's a Q&A at the bottom, and we'll keep a running tab and address all the questions at the end, but we'd love to hear from you throughout the presentation. What I'd like to talk about today is just digitizing. We want to digitize to make better decisions with the data that we already have, or maybe identify gaps in the data that we don't have. We want to be able to empower your team to make those decisions, make their job satisfaction a little better with modern tool sets. And ultimately, the goal for everybody here, I think, is to get to revenue and profit faster. So we'd love to show how digitizing your assets can help you do that. And to that end, we've been talking to a lot of people at shows over the last year. We've probably gone to 15 or 20 industry shows, and we're in an unprecedented time of investment in our broadband industry and growth. And that's going to continue probably, into the next 5 or 10 years. So the time to re-platform and digitize is certainly upon us right now. And we've been hearing that theme over and over, that people are limping along with the tools that they have, but they really wish they had something different. Some statistics that we found from a 2002 MIT study was that only 22% of companies have undergone significant digital business transformation. But those 22% have higher margins and revenue growth. Also from that same study, which was a book, I think, called Future Ready, The 4 Pathways to Capturing Digital Value, also indicated the cost of doing nothing. And one stark statistic was 26% of those companies lost revenue for failing to make a change. And that could be because they can't scale, or that the competition overtakes you, or any number of reasons. So with a digital fiber management system, it's going to enable you to query and analyze and report, and most importantly, visualize your data for a big picture that you can trust, but also has visibility across the organization. And have that data before you make big decisions, with a proof of concept at the high-level design stage, and some cost and revenue estimates that you can trust that are supported by real-world data. I think what you also want to do is tie your high-level business processes back to provable data, just really eliminating guesswork. A lot of people will come to us and say, I'm looking at designing a fiber network for 20,000 service locations and I want to be plus or minus 5% at the high level design stage. If that's your marching orders, you definitely need the right tooling to get there. So if all the subject matter experts in your organization have the same data in one place and it's visible from finance to sales to engineering to the NOC, you can agree on how to operate and look at all the same data. It's not siloed data. You're not waiting on other people to provide reports so that you can get a new customer. You can do it yourself in the department that you're in and know that you're all looking and analyzing the same data across the organization. So there's definitely a lot of value in finding out about new data points that affect your business that might have been hidden under that data. So a lot of the data that we have is very rich, but we just can't pull out the salient points. We don't know how to get at the sensitive parameters. And Vetro is a way to expose that data on your map in a visual context. And you can style and highlight what's important to you and have visual knowledge bases and dashboards and at a glance look at your network at a very granular level by just clicking on the map. So that talks a little bit about, we just talked a little bit about digitizing and making database decisions, but also your managers have to get your teams behind modern tool sets to progress their career paths so they stay, keep up their job satisfaction, and try to take away some of those manual redundant processes and digitize and automate those. So just this graphic is just about increasing team productivity and satisfaction and some of the things that can really just bog you down in manual processes. And on the right, showing maybe more like a clean interface, a simple interface that is rich with data in just one single screenshot. So you want your teams, labor is pretty scarce right now. So you want to be able to do a little bit more with less, train some other people in the organization as needed. But it has to have a simple UI UX. It has to be easy to use. And you want to prevent the errors ahead of time, before losing all your time trying to fix them. Certainly collaboration is important too. So you want your FMS to be able to allow access across the organization and maybe externally the organization, like some of your construction partners or other stakeholders, maybe even your funders or some of your vendors will need access to your network map with permission-based access. So, at the end of the day, you have a great team and you want great software. And when your team feels held back by their technology, in terms of like performance or speed or just the functionality, they're less productive. And so digitizing this process into a single FMS can really go a long way towards making your job a lot more satisfying. You can get a lot of info from a single view in Vetro, as we can show here too. Makes people more productive and efficient and knowing where to go. I know I can go right to the screen to get all the information I want and not have to look in 10 different places. And Vetro can help you show the current progress of your projects. Your teams can all just stay aligned with schedules, budgets, and deadlines. But lastly, what I'd really like to discuss while we're all here, we've covered how to make better decisions with data and visualization, empowering your teams with modern sets of tools that eliminate all the manual processes. But now let's talk a little bit about growth and profitability. Digital fiber management will enable you to always be ready. So being in a ready position to act before your competition can. Acquire and take advantage of funding opportunities, whether those be public or private. Transition seamlessly from planning to deployment over to operations. You're always planning, you're always building, and you're always operating. But there are transition points between the two. And Vetro customers do report connecting 2 to 5 times more homes per month after migrating over to a digital fiber management platform. So Vetro definitely offers you a great UI UX, a better customer experience in a very competitive environment. I think we're all trying to get to the same markets faster than the competition and get that take rate. But consumers are also becoming more demanding and more savvy. So you need tools to go along with that. So let's see. I think with that, I'd like to pass it off to Brock too, and just talk a little bit about digital transformation processes and how they're very analogous to maybe moving from one home to another.
Sure. Thanks, Sean. Yeah.
Sure.
Great overview of some of the value you can get there from finding the right system and some of the reasons why we believe Vetro is that right system. So we'd like to talk a little bit about just moving to a new house. Let's pull everything back a step, take the analogy of a house move here. moving from one FMS to the next, just like moving homes, is not always easy, but it's a chance for a fresh start. It's a chance to move into something better. After all, if you have the choice, why move into the same house, a few miles down the road when you can move into a bigger house, maybe has some of the things you need, is a better fit for you, for your family, for where you're at in your life. So we like to think about this fiber management system transition in the same way. And so throughout this webinar, we'll be going through a few best practices and a few questions we think you should be asking yourself as you're considering making a transition like this. Sean, do you want to cover off a few of those questions?
Yeah, absolutely. If we break, excuse me one second. If we break this down into processes in evaluating FMS software, we're looking at how it impacts the people, what the process is, and also most importantly, probably what the platform is. So first off, just we want to talk a little bit about people. So do you have the right people? So how are you going to query your FMS software vendor? What characteristics am I looking for in my partner? Am I looking for someone that knows my business, knows what my goals are, can support me, can show me the features and functionality of the platform that I need to move my business forward? Is it a true partner that really understands my business objectives? Is customer support robust, and is it part of my subscription? Is it easily accessible, or do I have difficult time dealing with and resolving support tickets? What kind of onboarding does my FMS software provider have? Do they just take my order and then hope I call them back to get training, or are they proactive and do they come get me and engage my organization and say, what about other parts of your organization? Maybe they need to be brought in under the tent here. We need to get marketing, sales, and finance up to speed on these systems. And then also, is my vendor's tech stack, are they investing in the development and the releases and the features that I need to see, or is it a stagnant process where you get what you get out of the box and you're not going to expect much improvement over time, or there's not a lot of investment behind it to move the features and functionality forward? And then secondly, the process with regard to your FMS software. Does my vendor have people in place that can help me move my house, as Brock said, to something new? I'm going to unpack everything out of the house and only put back what is most important to me in terms of revenue. There might be some legacy stuff that I leave behind that is fully depreciated or no longer generates revenue. Are there people in place that can help me move to my new house? What happens when my business scales or FMS needs to expand? Is this something that can be done? Can I go from 10,000 subscribers and make several acquisitions and go to 100,000 in 2 years? And can the software be robust enough to handle it? That's really important too. Is the vendor responsive during the sales process? And do they support the buying process? There's lots that goes into a procurement. There's lots of ways to structure and negotiate buying software. So is your vendor somebody that will work with you, or are they very rigid? And does the pricing model make sense for the business? Is it something that, hey, I'm just starting out right now. I don't have, $100,000, $200,000 to spend right now, but I'm going to scale up. And I know if I hit my goals, I can get to that level, but I need something to start out with that's palatable that I can manage at this point. But I'd say most importantly is the actual platform itself when you're evaluating FMS software vendors. All of the problem sets that you encounter today, all the bottlenecks, all the things that cost you time and human resources, what can the FMS do to solve that? What can it do to solve for those challenges? And also, how can people, just besides maybe my outside plant engineer, benefit from my fiber management system? Do my sales teams have to constantly go back to engineering for a quote to get a customer hooked up? Or can my salesperson get pretty close and get that customer before that enterprise customer before my competition has, because they have access to the map right in front of them and they can do some rudimentary costs that get them pretty close, and they do an analysis of maybe some other customers they can pick up along the way if they were to build that new route? Or are they going to take 2 or 3 weeks sending it to engineering and waiting for a quote to come back, as an example? Can the platform scale? Here at Vetro, we have customers that have 5,000 subscribers over up to several 100,000 subscribers. So scaling is really important. The other thing is the FMS standalone. Is it built on top of other software? Is it dependent upon other software to do feature set releases? And that's a question to ask. It's an extra cost as well as being a little bit slower to adapt to changes and releases. Does the FMS require an investment of time or money into customizing an implementation? How quickly can they get started? We've had several customers tell us that their implementation period is up to a year to 18 months. And that could be for any type of system, not just an FMS. It could be a DSS, OSS, and that kind of thing. Our customers are up and running in days or weeks time. So there's really no ramp up period at all. And then FMS software, are you required to purchase the services or maintenance package? And I think that's a little bit legacy where you're getting maybe a desktop solution and doing a maintenance fee every year. Or is it a pure SaaS play where everything is included in your annual cost? So these are just some of the questions that people might want to ask their software vendor as they get going. And then here's some, we'll transition as to how Vetro can answer some of those questions. Definitely it's simpler to use. So our customers generally because of our very clean UI UX and some of our validation tools are able to get up and running in just a couple of training sessions. Whereas I know other alternatives, perhaps you're off at a training class for a week, you've got the expense of sending somebody there. These can all be done remotely and quickly, and they can be done continuously as you add team members. Very important, is your platform open and extensible? Is it able to work with other business processes that you have in place or you're contemplating? Your map is probably going to be around for a while. It's your system of record, but other pieces may come and go as your business changes, and the platform is going to have to adapt to that. You may be swapping out different CRMs and things like that, and you're going to want to be able to integrate with your fiber management system. Another tenet of Vetro, another pillar of Vetro is it's true SaaS, meaning continuous delivery, meaning our feature sets are constantly released. You don't have any cost of ownership relating to servers, IT personnel maintaining licenses, power, things like that. It is in the cloud, true SaaS that is continuously delivered with new feature sets. Also, you can accelerate it at a lower cost. As I mentioned before, we scale with you, we succeed when you succeed. So the pricing is very correlated to the size of your network and how you scale and how you use it. We didn't spend a lot of time talking about this, but Vetro is purpose-built for fiber. There's definitely a lot of other systems out there that have their origins in copper and coax, or even in the electric space. And Vetro was built purposely for fiber by input from our customers and outside plant engineers, and specifically for all kinds of different network architectures. So that's a big difference as well. And then as far as being a system of record for layer one, the physical assets within your network, a lot of the value of your company is based on that accuracy of those records. And as you grow over time, either organically or through acquisition, there can be drift in that. And Vetro is definitely aimed to prevent that from happening and maintaining the robust and accurate nature of your system of record for the lifetime of your network. So we've definitely talked about what to look for in FMS and why Vetro can fill some of those gaps for you. But we'd like to spend just a little bit of time about migrating your data. Some of the folks on the call here may be from a greenfield scenario. They're just starting up, but some may have existing network, and they may have some questions about how do I get my data into Vetro and how can Vetro help me do that? So just want to remind people, if they have any other questions and answers, maybe just stick those in the chat, and I'd like to turn it over to Will Jonas. Will?
Thanks, Sean. And thanks again to everyone taking some time during their busy schedules to attend this. Like Sean said, if you guys have any questions related to migrations after I go through a couple slides, feel free to post those in the chat and we'll certainly answer them. So now that we've established, that even if you're being presented with an upgrade in your current system or you're looking for a new system, you're more than likely facing some type of migration in order to get into a new FMS. So let's address that elephant in the room surrounding your migrations. And by the way, the elephant is such a perfect example to represent migrations, as these can be, rather large projects for your organization. There are three common challenges that I often hear when scoping and working on these projects with customers. The first is that migrations are difficult. And while this can be true, the reality is that most migrations seem harder than they actually are. They are innately complex problems to solve when you're moving large sets of data that need things like connectivity to come along with it. They can be disruptive to your operations, which present, other challenges as you're trying to migrate this data out of one system and into a new. So it's really critical that your FMS vendor is really truly a partner and comprised of GIS and industry experts like we have here at Vetro, and is willing to take this on as a collaborative project. And you'll hear me stress the word collaboration a lot over the next couple of slides, and that's because it's really required for these things to go well. We need your help just as much as you need ours. And so working together is really what makes these projects successful. Oftentimes you're having to merge and sometimes even force data into a new schema or new data models that you're not used to. And so there can be even data limitations or roadblocks along a project that can lead to frustration. And some vendors may even force your bad data in and just kind of give you some fallout to address without working or addressing the root issues of why that data is not lining up as expected. So the reality is that these migration projects only become difficult when you don't have proper discovery, proper design, and controlled methods to deliver the data. The second challenge that I hear often is that migrations take a long time. And so again, this can sometimes be true when projects are mismanaged or not kept in scope. You're not doing the due diligence up front to understand what needs to happen and how. So they often seem like they take a long time, and that's just a byproduct of poor planning, poor project management, and lack of execution. And the third is that migrations are expensive. And of course, this can be true and depends on the scope of the project, but at the end of the day, it's mainly just a byproduct of the first 2 points. These projects require complex data translation, and it can take time to get right. When you combine that with mismanagement and vendors who don't understand your GIS data, in this highly evolving industry, that equals expensive. So over the next couple of slides, I'm going to show how Vetro attacks migrations to mitigate these challenges. With Vetro, it can be smooth, it can be quick, and it can be on budget. Next slide, please. So here, I want to go over kind of what we call the Vetro bridge to success with migrations. And it's really a 3D project or 3D approach to build this bridge. In order to be successful moving to a new FMS, you need to build a bridge for your data and processes to transport to a new system. So it is a lot about the data, but it's also about who's using the data and how. The first phase that we go through is what we call discovery. And discovery is really just figuring out what your current system, your current processes are. So it's critical to understand the existing ecosystem that you're under at your organization, how the information flows between different departments and is leveraged by your teams. While outside system replacements may be outside of our scope, we also want to understand who's having to leverage information inside your FMS and how your company and your organization use the information for things like reporting, design, as-built construction. We also will document your use cases during this process, again, similar to the step above, but just understanding what you guys are doing from a day-to-day, how your teams are using your current FMS or how they're designing. Maybe it's an AutoCAD, maybe it's not an FMS, maybe it's Excel. Just ensuring that we're covering all our bases. Here, we also need to understand your network architecture and design, making sure we're able to connect your data, your spatial data to your connectivity data. And that helps us make best practice recommendations for how the data should look and feel once it's in our system. A schema map is a critical output that we'll do in this step of discovery. It kind of becomes our migration playbook. We typically like to start with a very small, highly representative area, something like a cabinet area, cabinet boundary, And then we'll map that schema into Vetro. And so that's when it's really critical to understand how the spatial data relates to your connectivity records. And then the last thing we'll do in the discovery phase is we'll identify your key stakeholders. And again, this goes back to my point on collaboration. It's important to understand who uses the FMS directly and indirectly. But more importantly, this is a collaborative effort, and in order to be successful, you need subject matter experts on your team who are able to answer our questions and help move the project along. We need just as much help from you as the customer as you might need from us. And while we might not be able to answer something right away, if someone can explain their processes and explain the data to us, we can go back and look at how it's organized and recommend the best way to track and manage it in Vetro. After the discovery phase is complete, we move into the design phase. And this is where a lot of the so-called magic happens. We are able to utilize existing ETL tools. We aim for highly configurable tools that are agile and allow us to perform iterative runs against our APIs. And so at first, we'll start again with that small area that we mapped in the discovery phase with schema maps, and then we will test, QA, and expand that to larger data sets. So our goal is to get a small representation of the network, have the customer QA it with us, ensure that it's accurate, and then it's just rinse and repeat to larger subsets of data. The QA is critical in order to make sure we're capturing everything required by the customer. And we don't know what we don't know. So if you guys can help explain the issue with the data, we can often find a programmatic way to fix it. No one knows your data like you do. And so that's where we need our partners who come in and are able to help explain what they need and how they need it. These iterative dry runs allow us to flag and report on data, so we can oftentimes help drive data cleanup through this process where connectivity and spatial data does not align. Ideally, this happens, in the source system, and then we get a new output, and then we bring it back in. So sometimes exceptions will be determined to be handled in post go live with just manual, but oftentimes we can get the data really clean just by this iterative process that allows us to flag these exceptions and get them in front of you. And then the final output of the design stage is what we call a go live plan. And this is critical to ensuring smooth delivery once we're ready to move into production. It's essentially just a project plan that will outline each stakeholder's responsibility and step-by-step instructions for executing a successful migration. And that brings us into delivery. And delivery should really be the simplest part of this process because we've done the due diligence, we've done the proper planning, and we've done the proper testing and QA to know that everything looks good and the data is aligned and meets our expectations. So we still need to ensure that all other systems are in place. So while they might be outside of this scope, we want to make sure that your other systems are working and can leverage the information from Vetro to minimize disruption from your day-to-day operations. We'll certainly execute the go live. Again, this is simple, fast, and straightforward because of the planning that we've done. And then we still want to go through QA with the customer to ensure that everything lines up as expected and follows the same exception criteria that we outlined in the design phase. But even more importantly, after that is that we don't just migrate you and say good luck. We have an amazing support and customer success team that ensure your people and your processes are supported in the new system. So just like we have to migrate your data, we need to migrate and help with that change management of your people and processes, ensuring that they're trained and properly know how to use the new system. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to kind of walk through a real world scenario that we've recently done. So on the left here, you see some bullets for each phase. So we recently had a customer that came to us. They were undergoing many acquisitions. They had a multiple merge of companies who wanted to select Vetro, but needed to know we could meet their aggressive timelines for migrating data. This was especially complex because they use different GIS and connectivity systems across these companies. And they gave us a very aggressive timeline. They said, we need to know that you can do this in under 8 weeks. Even to add to that, they had other homegrown systems that were tied into their existing FMS that they needed to be replaced. And while that was out of scope, we had to still ensure that those systems were able to access what they needed to access and to ensure a smooth transition from our system. During the design phase, we developed an accurate and repeatable process leveraging our Vetro API. And being able to use that API allows for much more control and leads to better data standardization and quality. It ensures that all the data being received by our system meets our standards for the application. So you don't get data that comes in, but then you can't use it, or you get errors, or it doesn't have the necessary requirements. By feeding that through our API, it allows for much better control in that ETL process. We completed the design phase in less than a month. And it led to a 99% connectivity success rate, meaning that out of over 650, I think, 1,000 connection records, we had less than a 1% fallout. And it's important to call out that these fallout records did not come over due to issues with the data or issues with Vetro, but more issues with the spatial data not properly aligning with the connectivity records, meaning at a certain point, a certain splice location, the connectivity said cable A meets cable B, and we saw that cable A met cable C, leading to us having to flag that. And so this was really valuable to the customer. We were able to point them in the right direction. They were able to get those fixed as they were not even aware of the issue, which is, again, one of the benefits of being able to control that data through the API and log exceptions as we do it. So when it came time for delivery, all we had to do was execute our go live plan. There was less than 1% manual cleanup required by the customer. And then we had to execute on the process change and support that process with our support team and customer success team. So we trained new users and ensured all departments in the organization were able to replace their day-to-day operations. And most importantly, this led to a happy customer. So that's it for me. Thanks again for everyone letting me walk you through the migration process here at Vetro. I'll kick it back to you, Sean.
Definitely appreciate that, Will, and thanks for taking all the mystery out of data migration. We have a team of trained surgeons here that have done this many, many, many times, and they have a lot of experience and ways to automate that transition for you smoothly. But the focus today was really picking a fiber management system that's right for you, how it solves some of your bottlenecks and challenges in your business processes. And I hope we've come away, with some major points here that Vetro is purpose-built for fiber, that based on the investment that's going on in our space right now, the time to act is now, because everybody is going to be scaling. And really, to be successful, you're going to have to beat your competitors to a lot of these markets and a lot of these builds. And the only way to do that is to compress the time schedule to get there. So that means on your engineering side, that means on your deployment side, and even on the planning side, you have to go faster. And what better tool than to have a visualization tool that has it all in one place? Once you get to the operational phase, you're definitely going to want an architecture that's open on a platform such as Vetro, so that you can integrate with your other business processes as well for provisioning service and things like that. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, there's definitely a cost not to act right now for folks that aren't already digitizing these operations. There's actually a chance to take some steps backwards as the competition goes by. So there's definitely an ROI with Vetro. And, we've done migrations over and over and over to get people transition and get time to revenue faster, sooner rather than later, and not waiting until perhaps a grant gets funded or not funded, but get those processes in place and be in the ready position to go when the opportunities present themselves. Love to talk more with people that are interested, and I'd like to turn it over to Brock to see how you can get in touch with our team and go a little bit deeper, and then we'll go get into the Q&A a little bit. We've got a couple of questions right now and still open. We probably have time for a couple more if people want to drop some into the chat.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Sean. Yeah, I know we are tight on time, but a couple of housekeeping items at the end here before we jump into Q&A. As thanks for attending this webinar, you'll be receiving an ebook that we've recently published on how to find the right fiber management solution for you. So stay tuned to your inboxes for that. Expect to receive that shortly. And then we will jump into some Q&A here, but just putting our contact details up on the screen for you. And then as we're doing Q&A here, if you want to give that QR code on the screen a scan, that'll give you a chance to get in touch with us if you want to learn more about Vetro. And there might even be a little bit of swag in it for you. So scan that QR code, take the survey, and see what happens. With that, I'm going to jump into the Q&A here. Let's see, we've got a few coming in here. First one, I like this one. Sean, maybe you can take this one. How is support handled at Vetro in terms of licensing and costs? Are there any surprises in there? I suspect I know what they're getting at with that one. I'll turn that over to you.
Yeah, sure. No, Vetro, your support is included with your subscription. That's the training and onboarding that you're going to get, and ongoing tickets that you submit and support for those. In terms of, and that's all part of your subscription. That is definitely different than some of the solutions that are out there, that it's either extra money or difficult to obtain. And then as far as other costs go, we definitely do carefully scope migration tasks, and we parse it out. As Will mentioned, there's different ways to do that. Sometimes we can teach you to do a lot of it in your quote unquote spare time, but a lot of broadband providers don't have that time, or they don't have extra people, and we'll do the whole thing for you. So there's many ways that you can do that, and we'll be more than happy to work with you on those types of things.
Awesome. Yeah, good answer. Let me dig another one out of the questions here. Here we go. Can a migration to Vetro be done in stages? What else did they put in here? Can it be done in stages? I think, sorry, I'm paraphrasing here, but for example, could you move an active network and then legacy?
Yeah, Will, I don't know if you want to take that one in terms of how you've seen people move it over in stages, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the short answer is yes. We do that some with certain customers, if really to fit their needs, if there's certain areas that they want to have migrated over, because it gets them into the platform and gets them designing or working in these extension areas quicker, then we can certainly work with you on that. We're really flexible when it comes to things like that, and then we can circle back and address the legacy data. We see oftentimes where they might even have legacy data or an acquisition of data that's even in a different system. So you almost have to do it in two parts or phases, two separate little mini migrations. So yeah, I would say we've seen probably all scenarios under the sun when it comes to things like that. And we're certainly willing to work with the customer and ensure that it leads to, as minimal of operational disruption as possible is always our goal.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Will. Okay, time for one more here. We'll squeeze one in these last 2 minutes. Okay, here we go. Can Vetro mine data from my BSS OSS, such as service locations?
Yeah, I'm happy to start with that, Will, and you can chime in if anybody else has an answer for that. But the Vetro platform can sort of be considered an Ask Me Anything machine for the physical layer. So as well as an operational inventory system. So we definitely anchor and support as a system of record anything you want to tie together, such as BSS, OSS data, your service locations and things like that. It does depend on if that system itself allows for that. There could be simplistic ways of doing it or more complex ways by leveraging APIs and other things within Vetro to be able to make that happen. So some of it depends on what you're choosing, but a lot of times when people pick their fiber management system of record, they're often taking a look around for the latest and greatest BSS OSS, because it might be a time of digital transformation across the entire organization. And we definitely want to support that. Our support team is very cognizant of people doing these things at the same time or in close proximity to one another. And we like to work together with you to project manage that and stage that for you.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Sean. And with that, we are at time. So once again, thank you everyone for joining us today. Hope you got something good out of this webinar. If we didn't get to your question, apologies for that, but expect a follow-up email from us. We won't leave you hanging. And a big thanks to Sean and Will for joining as our panelists today. Great to have you on, guys. And
Thanks,
Thanks again, everyone, for attending, and enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week. Thank you.